Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Mystic and the Physicist. I am the in-resident physicist, Will Arntz, here with my lovely wife, Deirdre Hade.
The mystic.
The in-resident mystic. And today, we're going to be talking about the worldview and how the worldview is so important, something a lot of people never look at, and how it affects really our reality. And there's going to be a little treat because personally, something I am very curious about, being a physicist, is things are pretty cut and dried. I get up, I make tea, my life goes on pretty much the way one would think it goes, being logical. But from a mystic's point of view, and I'm going to ask you some questions about your experience, what's it like inside your eyes being a mystic?
Well, it's a trip.
That's what I want to find out about, and I think
trip.
everyone would be interested in that. What's the trip?
So you want to know about the trip right now?
No, we're going to save that for later.
What is it, the Kool-Aid? What is it?
We're going to do the Kool-Aid a little later. But for right now, let's talk about worldviews for a second.
Very important, worldviews, because really our worldview, how you see, perceive your reality, colors your emotions, your feelings, your connection, so much so even in cognitive therapy and psychology, they found that to change one's perception, one's worldview is the key to really recovering from, let's say, a panic disorder or an addiction or anxiety. It's really about shifting one's worldview. So the worldview is essentially important to being able to have a happy life and a good life.
So an example of this that has come up a lot is the notion of healing. And people who do healing and people who accept healing. And again, they found that the people who believe in their worldview that healing actually happens, it's a force in nature, they get healed better. Now, of course, some people argue it's the placebo effect, but we know, but even the placebo effect is saying that your worldview, that you think that pill is going to cure you and it's just a sugar pill and it does, says that that worldview, that belief in your head is so powerful, it can change your physiology.
A thought is what creates everything. Everything is thought. Thoughts that we know we're thinking, and actually thoughts that we're not aware that we're thinking. They're subconscious, unconscious thoughts. And these thoughts are little packets of energy. And these little packets of energy, whoosh, go into the unified world, unified field of our existence. They meet other little packets of thought. They collide, they form, they become a collective consciousness. So really, in order to transform our world and to step into the challenges of today, we must look at shifting our thought until our worldview changes. Because you have little thoughts, but if you shift enough, one's worldview completely changes. And when that happens, we change inside. Our physiology, our biochemistry, our ability to see the future or not.
So I have a question for you. I'm going to go back to something you just said.
Okay.
You just said that, thoughts are these little packets of energy.
Right.
And the little packets of energy interact with other little packets of energy, and they do things. Would you say that's your mystical worldview speaking? Is that a mystical, in other words, is that a mystical worldview?
That is well, I can, yes, because in my perception, I can actually see these thought forms, these thoughts interacting with other thoughts. Now, science comes along like you, and you say, there's neuroplasticity. When brains are all in the same room, they all start to think the same thoughts. The brains start to change. of course, that leads us to, in sociology, mob consciousness. I actually have seen, like not all the time, but I've seen when I'm in a deep mystical state, these packets.
So when you say packets, you mean you see them. I mean, could you describe that a little more for the non-mystical who are? And like I said, I'm very curious about what it is. I would love to be.
Well, they're kind of like packets, but waves at the same time. So they're both. It's
they're
like
plackets.
They're prackets.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're prackets. And they increase with emotional charge, and they kind of decrease with a less emotional charge. So emotions are really what it's all about when it comes to thought and how powerful a thought is. And they interact with each other. So there's like a whole conversation of thoughts happening, and you may not even be consciously aware of the conversation you're having with other people.
So when you perceive this thing happening with these little plackets out there interacting between people, is that something you can just turn it on, or it just happens sometimes and not other times?
Well, I accidentally stumbled into seeing this, and I was really mesmerized. So I spent a long time in a meditation, open-eyed meditation, where I saw this happening. But I don't see it all the time because that would make life very difficult.
I was wondering.
But I can, like right now, shift my perception. I can consciously say shift and begin to see how these prackets, this energy is moving from, let's say, our sound guy, right? Where the energy is moving from your body, how it's interacting with other people, who's receiving, who's giving. It's like a dance. It's a dance of thought.
So when do you decide to do that? Or is this something you just, an intuition, you just go there? Or is that...
To see that. Yes. Well, I don't really think of that too often because I've seen it. So what if I really want to understand something, or let's say understand the dynamics in a family? If I'm working with a counseling session with a family, then I'll open up to be able to see this, because it gives me a lot of insight as to how the subconscious and unconscious messages in the family are, where they're tripping each other up, what's running. Mm-hmm. So I might open it up for that.
Do you do that with me?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so you do that to me. That's very, very interesting.
I warned you before we got married.
Yeah, you did. You did, and I was fascinated. So, but we're talking about worldviews,
yes,
right? So, what is your worldview that allows that to happen?
My worldview, since a very young age, and then being shown this worldview over and over and over, so I would keep going back to it, is that we are living in a soup, so to speak, of energy. And in this soup, we have different frequencies of existence. And in these different frequencies, one can either see them with our eyes, you can feel them with one's heart, one's emotions. We can connect with them in a mental way. We can experience them as a divine way, a divine energy, and that these different realities coexist at the same time. It's like they coexist. They're like nesting dolls, those Russian nesting dolls, like inside of each other. It's hard to explain it, because when you explain the mystical and you're trying to use the two-dimensional language, it's like, whoa, we have to go from 7 to 2. How do we do this?
See, that I'm going to interrupt you here, because it just occurred to me that as a physicist, you say we live in a soup. I think we live in an empty jar.
Oh, so well, why do you think you live in? Why do you think we
Because
live
it
in empty
appears
jars?
that there's emptiness around and there's nothing between me and Betsy or the camera or the sound thing. And so it seems, my assumption is it's empty until something fills the space. Your assumption is completely 180 degrees. Your assumption is there's no empty space, there's nothing but connection.
That's correct. There's no empty space. That is my worldview.
Now, of course, physics is coming to that also, that there
Took
is...
you guys so long. So
you know,
slow.
well, because it looked empty. It looked empty.
Yes, but you can't always trust what you see. Didn't your mother ever tell you that? Can't trust everything you see.
She told me that. So
Okay.
yes, so physics is saying that there is an incredible amount of energy due to certain quantum blah 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 within a cubic centimeter of space. There's enough energy. Someone physicist once told me to boil all the oceans in the world. There's that much latent energy in that little space. So there is no emptiness, and because of the quantum entanglement, everything is always touching each other all the time.
And everything's in a state of potential.
Now, what do you mean by state of potential?
Meaning
Because I'm
that
trying to get inside how you see the world so differently, and that you get these amazing, miraculous things happening. I'm a little jealous.
I know. Well, hang around me.
That's why I married you.
What I see the world as pure possibility. Everything is possible when we shift our worldview in a collective consciousness, meaning in a group consciousness. When we reconnect, we formulate our thoughts to think the highest thoughts, the thoughts of virtues, of love and compassion and care, then that's the key to possibility flowering.
So what I get from talking to you and examining that is there's a very different way in which you perceive the world, the infamous worldview, and that different way of perceiving it is something that would change the potentials of our entire world?
Absolutely, which is why I decided to come out of the, quote, mystical closet and start talking and engaging with everyone, because everyone has that side, that ability to see beyond this reality and perceive beyond this. Every single person I have ever met from every walk of life, even scientists, mathematicians, or my accountant, when you sit and you just start to ask the right questions, ultimately everybody says, well, I had this experience and I don't like to talk about it. And so you're busted, basically, guys. You've all had a mystical experience. It's time to come out of the closet and let's inform and marry science and do the trip, the big trip together.
Thank you very much. Let your worldview take you on a mystical adventure.